Hey friends, you guys are about to watch a video on harvesting and curing and storing onions. I want to disclaimer this before we get into it. I'm harvesting these onions early, much earlier than you probably want to. What you're looking for with onions that you're gonna harvest is for them to fall over. That means that the stems that are growing straight up start to fall over and they start to dry out. That means your onions are absolutely done growing and they're ready to harvest. I'm gonna talk about this later in the video, but the reason that I've chosen to harvest these early is that I want to succession sow and I want to get more into that bed. And these are big enough, and in the past, I have been able to successfully cure these onions. That is not necessarily typical. A lot of people will recommend that you do not cure onions that are not starting to dry out in the field or in your garden bed. So just go into this video knowing that I know this was early. You don't need to drop that in the comments below. You can if you want, but I know that this is early. But I'm gonna go ahead and cure them anyways, and you'll hear more about that in a little bit. But sorry for the fake start here. We'll jump to my real intro right now. Hey friends, welcome back. This is Ashley with Uncommon Roots Homestead, and today I want to talk about harvesting onions and curing them. Let's do it. Okay, so a couple of things about these onions. So these onions were planted back in September. In our zone, we're Zone A, East Tennessee. We can plant onions twice. We can plant them in the fall for an early, late spring, early summer harvest. I'm picking these a little bit earlier. I'll help you in 1 second. Let me talk to them first, okay? Picking them a little bit earlier than I normally would because I want to plant this trellis that we put here. And they're a pretty good size. They're good enough definitely to cure and store. And because we're gonna be putting more in the ground that I'm gonna harvest in the fall, I'm not worrying about these lasting us all the way through the winter. So they're a pretty good size. You can see they're, I mean, that's probably what, 3 inches in diameter. It's a really good size onion. So these are sweet onions that I'm harvesting today. My white onions aren't quite ready yet. And then I didn't plant any purple. It was just a total lapse in judgment. So I'll be planting purple onions here in the next couple of months as well. So what I'm gonna do is plant. All right, so because I'm gonna be able to plant these again, I am not that worried about it. But we're gonna go ahead and harvest these. I've been seeing a little bit of pest pressure. There's some bugs right there, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick these, and then we'll talk about how we're gonna cure them. So you wanna cure your onions if you're planning to store them for any period of time. And because this is a lot of onions to pick at one time, obviously we're not gonna be eating them all or, you know, preserving them all right now.
Or checking them.
Giving them to the chickens? So we're gonna go ahead, and you ready to help me pick them? Okay, let's go ahead and pick them, and then we'll talk about how we're gonna store them. Okay, so we went ahead and harvested, I'd say 3/4 of this bed. And most of them are a pretty good size. We have some that are a little bit on the smaller side, you can see. But for the most part, these are all pretty good size. Again, I could have left these a little bit longer. Usually I plan to harvest my onions in like the 1st or 2nd week of June. It's still the 2nd week of May, but I want to use this bed. So the ones that I've left are too small to harvest. They're not big enough for me to justify pulling them out of the ground. And unfortunately, a lot of them are by the trellis. I'm gonna give them a couple more days because we have to have some more compost delivered anyways. So I'm gonna just give them as much time as I can, and then I'll go ahead and pull them out, even if they aren't ready, because I want to get this trellis planted.
Mom, that one's big.
You see another big one?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
This one.
Let's see. Which one? You think that one looks big?
Yeah.
See how it's bulb? Let's move this all around. See how that bulb is, where did it go? There it is. See how that bulb is still not fully formed? We want that to be a lot bigger. We're gonna give it a little bit more time.
Maybe this one?
Yeah, so you can see on the ones that we've chosen to leave, they're pretty small. Like that's
Like this
probably an inch, 2 inch.
Like this one is.
Yeah, he's too small. See, if we spoon around him, he doesn't really have too much of a head yet. So we want them to continue to grow and get a little bit bigger.
We got one little one.
We did get one little one. Yeah, so we want to give these a little bit more time. Let them get a little bit bigger. I mean, we got a pretty good harvest, even if that's all we got. We got two big baskets full. So I'm gonna go ahead, and what we'll do, how we'll cure those, we're gonna take them over to the house and we're gonna lay them out. You want them to be in like a cool, dry area. So a lot of times a basement is a good idea. We don't have a basement. So we're gonna be using our garage. It's still pretty cool here. Like the highs today is like 58. So it's a good temperature. So what we're gonna do is actually cure these in our garage. So we've got a table set up. We're gonna lay them all flat on the table and just let them dry. So what you're looking for is the exterior to dry out, similar to how you purchase onions in the store. You wanna have this top layer totally dry. That prevents rotting and mold and all of that nasty stuff that you don't want with your storage onions. So what we'll do, you can, she loves mint. So what you can do then is stack them all in the pantry. You want to keep them again in a cool, dry place for long-term storage as well. But you can stack them together at that point. You don't have to worry about them all being laid out flat. You can also at that point trim them up so you can take off the green stems, things like that. I'm gonna let that completely dry out and then I'm gonna do that. So I'll take you guys along with that when I do that later as well. But that's how we go ahead and cure our onions. I still have another bed here of onions that we haven't touched yet. These have not really started heading up yet. I was looking at them the other day. They're still pretty immature. I'll show you. Yeah, they're still pretty immature when it comes to the bulb size, even though they're getting pretty big. The bulbs are just barely starting to form. So we're gonna go ahead and leave those in there. Right, Isla? We're gonna leave them for a little bit. I found with the white onions, they're just taking a lot longer to... That is a giant scape. Look at this. Look how big that is. Like, that's almost my height. It's a giant, but the bulb is just non-existent. So, I found with the white onions, they just take a lot longer to like bulb up. The sweet onions went really well. I wish that we had done purple onions instead of white onions. I just wasn't really thinking when I was shopping for onions. So, I will go ahead and like in early July, I'll probably go ahead and replant onions to hopefully harvest in like October. So maybe even June. I might do it in June. So I'm going to leave most of these beds empty because that's what I'm going to put back in them. But I am going to try to clear out the trellis area, and we're going to put a second. We're going to put a second trellis right here. So you might have noticed we added this trellis, and then we'll have a second trellis, and then we have the two trellises over there. So before we head over to the house for me to show you exactly how we're going to store these, I just want to take a peek at what else is happening in the garden. Let me show you. We're going to do a full garden tour in just a couple of days, so I'm going to try not to spoil everything. But look at this asparagus coming up. You can see it everywhere. Lots of asparagus. Looks so good. Now you would not harvest this. We do not want to harvest asparagus in the first year. And I mean, it's so little, that's not going to do much for you. But we want to make sure that that gets big and strong and goes to seed this year. Also, before I forget, I'm going to be weighing all of these onions because you might remember, I want to know exactly how many pounds of food we were able to grow this year from the potager garden. I don't even know what to estimate. So if you have any estimates of how many pounds of food we're going to grow in 2021 in the potager garden, drop them below, because I want to see if we can our goal here was to see how much production we can get out of this space while still having fun. So that means that I used creativity, I added flowers, I sacrificed some space to things that maybe not be as like high yield, but also I wanted this to be a really functional place where we were getting a lot of food for our family. So that's my goal. I think that we've got probably 20 pounds of onions that I've harvested today. I'll be interested. I gotta weigh them and see. So drop your thoughts below. Okay, so in true Ashley fashion, I think I'm just gonna harvest all of them. So we already have so many. I think we're just gonna harvest them. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm actually like tearing up because we broke so many of those onions and they're really strong, but all right, we harvested that entire bed. So now it's ready. We're gonna let it rest for a couple days, then we'll put some compost on, and then I'll plant the trellis. And then, like I said, I'm gonna leave most of the bed open because I'm just gonna replant some more onions to get us our second harvest. Onions take between 100 to 150 days, depending on the variety.
And onion gardening.
They take between 100 and 150 days. So,
And
gardening. And gardening. So most varieties we have plenty of time for now. So I'll do that, and then in the fall I'll go ahead and plant again so that next year I can harvest again.
Next year, and I'll push the button.
So even though I'm sacrificing a little bit of, even though I'm sacrificing a little bit of size, because this kind of cadence allows me to re-sow so frequently, I'm actually getting a lot more out of it, right? If I waited, that yummy mint, if I waited and then harvested, you know, in June or July, I would be limiting what I could actually harvest in the fall, and then I would be limiting myself of what I could harvest later. So it kind of all equals out. And yeah, it's just how I prefer to do it. So remember, you can do it however you want to do it. You can garden however you want to garden. Even if something is against the rules, you can do it. Okay, so the last thing before I let you guys go, because we got to get home for dinner, huh? Do you want to pick some of that spinach for our salad?
Yeah.
The purple? I'll show you how to pick it in just a second. We're going to pick the leaves. Look at this cabbage starting to head up. So nice. Oh, should get some? This is red oryx spinach. How's it taste? Bite it. How's it taste? You like it? Red oryx spinach is a little bit bitter. I like it. I think it adds a lot of color to salad. Apparently, Isla is not a huge fan. But I'm going to harvest some of that, and then I'll harvest some regular spinach, and then we're going to go eat dinner.
No, we haven't touched her Jeannie.
Oh, you want to go check on Jeannie?
With our onions.
With our onions? I'm not carrying our onions down there.
Yeah.
Friends, thank you for harvesting onions with us. I was going to say goodbye to you, but actually, I'm not gonna, because I'm going to bring you back to the house. No, we're going to bring them back to the house, and we're going to show them how we cure the onions.
Oh.
Sound good?
Yes.
All right, let's go back to the house.
No, we have to.
All right, welcome to our mess of a garage. You actually can't see that much of the mess. You can see a little bit of it up there, but there were a couple things I didn't mention earlier as we were harvesting that I wanted to make sure I mentioned in this video. So typically, if you're growing one batch of onions in the year to store, you want to wait for the onions to start dying off. So some of mine had, some of them hadn't. They start dying off and the tops kind of fold over. That's how you know that they're ready to be harvested. Mine were young, right? And so curing and storing young onions is possible, but it comes with a higher risk of rot, and it's just not quite as ideal. But I've done it before, and usually about 70% of the onions at this stage cure just fine. They've already started kind of curing in the ground. Like I said, some of them have already started dying off. They are past the point where they send up flowers and things like that. So I'm comfortable doing it this way. That being said, there are plenty of resources on when to harvest onions and how to cure them. I'm not saying that those are incorrect, right? I'm saying that the most correct way to do this is to wait longer. I'm doing it early, and to let them start curing outside in the field or in your garden beds or whatever, and then bring them inside to cure. You're gonna get the most out of these, but we're gonna be eating these over the next couple of months. In fact, we'll come in and get them and eat them as we go. I am gonna cure them here in the garage on this table. Our temperatures are really mild right now. If I do start to see any rot and not drying out, I'm actually gonna take those right inside, clean them up, and we'll eat them. So that's kind of the way that I handle it. If you are having bad luck and you're noticing a lot of them are going bad, what you can do and what I've done in the past is you just take them in and you just preserve them all. So you can dehydrate them, you can cook them up, you can can them. There are lots of different options. And those are all great options too. So you have a lot of options, and you can actually harvest onions at any stage in their growing cycle. So I've harvested these a little bit before they were totally ready, but they were starting to fall over. They were starting to die back. And frankly, I didn't have the time or desire to let them go all the way. The next round that I do, I'll let them go all the way, and then I'll put the new onions in the ground once they're done. But with these, no harm, no foul. So I'm gonna go ahead and get them out of the truck, and I'm gonna lay them out, and then I will show you a little bit of what I'm looking for. Okay, so what I have done is laid one row out and then a second row head to head. And then with the extras, I kind of draped them carefully around so that they can dry out this way. Now, in a perfect world, you have more room and you can just lay these all out. It's best if they don't overlap. What I'm gonna have to do over the next couple of weeks is actually go and move them, but I'm gonna do that anyways because I'm gonna be checking for rot and checking to make sure none of them need to come inside and be preserved in a different manner. So I wanted to show a couple of things. I know I already talked about this a little bit, but one of the reasons that I harvest like this is I planted these so early. I planted these in September, so they grew over the winter. So a lot of them are already, you can see they were already starting to die off, and they're already starting to self-cure quite a bit. So these aren't like your traditional summer onions. They're not white. They're not your traditional summer onions. So I usually have pretty good luck with this. Again, it's not necessarily the most common way to do it, but I want you to start thinking about how can you think outside the box and try things differently. And just see what works for you. You know, there are a lot of rules in life, and there are a lot of rules in gardening, and sometimes they don't all apply. Now, because I've done it this way, I do have to be really diligent and check these every single day, and any that are starting to get soft or starting to show signs of rot, I'm going to remove them immediately and deal with them in the kitchen. So with that being said, I hope that this encourages you to try something new, try something different, maybe get a little bit more out of your onion harvest, though I'm pretty sure it evens out because though I've harvested this much sooner, they are much smaller, but it allows me to grow two different varieties. It allows me to kind of have this revolving circle of onions being ready to be harvested, which I really prefer to just harvesting once a year and then storing for the entire year. So these only have to store me through the end of the summer because in the fall, I'm going to be harvesting another batch of onions, and those ones will be stored until early spring, and then I'll be harvesting again. So it's kind of this residual cycle where I don't need these onions to last more than 3 months. So they should, and that's what this is about. Anyways, thank you for joining me today in the garden. Hopefully you learned a little something about onions. And I'd like to hear your feedback. Have you ever grown onions in a non-traditional way? And have you tried storing them or curing them earlier than you're supposed to? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you. There's always a place in my garden for you. Until next time.